So find your comfortable seat and know that when I say that, I mean it. So what I mean by that is if sitting cross-legged makes that hip hurt, please feel free to put that beautiful little cushion right under your knee. And this does a couple things. So the limbs work like seesaws. So when one edge of the limb goes down, the other edge of the limb goes up. And what's optimal for the hip is down. So when we sit, the femur head tends to ride up into the socket. And that's why eventually we kind of round forward and we hurt and the back gets too flat. So when we place a block underneath the knee, it lifts the knee up and the femur head drops down into a more optimal position. So if that's more comfortable for you, please do that. Let's take our hands behind the back and just with the backs of our hands, let's just kind of rub from sacrum, tailbone area up into the back. Just give yourself a little massage. You can even go in like circles here to warm up that area of the back. And sometimes I'll just go up and down through those tight muscles and maybe even a little over to the side. So I bring one hand over to the side of the back and then the other hand. And then let's go ahead and do that. So let's use our hand and bring let's bring the right wrist back to the left side of the body. And the other hand is going to hold it, but the shoulder on that arm, on the holding arm, is going to pull back as you lift up through the chest. And just take a few moments. This is a nice initial lung, shoulder opening movement. Take another breath there, gentle stretch for the shoulder. Inhale. And as you exhale, let's switch that. So we bring the other back of the hand to the back of the rib. And the other reason I love this is because I get to feel into how those ribs are sitting in my body. Are they resting really heavily back into that hand, or are they pushing forward? And just to give you that feeling of how those ribs are doing. I sometimes will take that back hand and gently push and lift, so that the ribs get a little sense of lengthening away from the back of the hips. Beautiful. One more breath here. And then just release that. Take the arms out to the side like stop signs. We'll start with our flossing. Remember, you can bring the hands forward if it feels too much of a pull, and start to look to the right and to the left. And just get right away into those nerve sheaths that the nerves sit in. This helps to encourage the nerve to glide in the sheath. Super good thing for neck and shoulders. Let's go ahead and release those hands. Turn the palms face up and let the fingertips dip down and continue. And while you're doing that, take a moment to touch base with your breath. I'm just reading an article the other day, again, how important it is for us right now in this COVID time to keep our lungs strong. Release your hands, release the neck, shrug the shoulders slightly as you sweep the arms up overhead. And as you do that, let the hips get heavy. Like, see if you can feel those sits bones on the earth. At the same time, don't flatten out the lumbar spine. So tip the pelvis slightly. Bring the heart over belly. Bring the throat over heart. And from here, the rooting down of the sits bones encourages that lightness, that reaching up through the crown. One more breath here. And exhale. Release. We're going to take our hands behind us, take our legs out in front of us in a V, and then just take the legs and flop them in and flop them out. And you just take this opportunity to deep breathe. And maybe even sigh. Releasing any stress out through the voice. Another one. And beautiful. You're going to bring those legs into the opposite crossing that you had before. And here's our pranayama today. Here's our breath practice. We're going to do this for a minute, and the hands go straight up overhead in a Y. Excuse me while I set my watch. So the hands go straight up overhead in a Y, and we're just going to breathe here for 60 seconds with a fast breath. So there's an inhale deeply, an exhale completely. We inhale again, and we start keep going. So the exhale is somewhat forceful. The inhale is somewhat passive. The eyes look at the third eye point, and we try to stay as relaxed in this position as possible. Inhale deeply, bring the hands up overhead, hold the breath. See if you can count to 20. Stacking heart over belly, throat over heart. And release the hands all the way down to the lap. Place the heels of the hands on the thigh bones and start to squeeze the hands together, like you're trying to bring those thigh bones deeper into their sockets. And then start to gently rotate the thigh bones forward towards the feet. And notice as you do that, that it becomes a little bit easier to tilt the hips. So go ahead and let that happen. And you just want to keep that pressure of the hands, you know, firm, but not too hard. And they're giving information to those thigh bones to draw into center so that all the muscles and bones hug around that central channel, which is the spine. And as you start to hinge forward, notice if the chin likes to jot forward and up. See if you can draw the sides of the throat back. One more breath. Beautiful. And release. Take your hands behind you. Take your legs out in front of you. Here we go, just shaking it out and finding your breath. Just getting that synovial fluid moving, stimulating lymphatic flow, and squeezing around those little lymph nodes. My heart is lifted. My shoulders are slightly squeezing shoulder blades together. Couple more breaths, almost there. We're really starting our practice today, waking up the body and the breath. Here we go back into the original crossing, again, using blocks if you need to support that seesaw effect. We're going to return to our breath practice, our pranayama. So hands are out in a V, eyes look at the third eye point. And we inhale deeply and exhale completely. Another inhale here to begin. Just notice as you continue this breath practice, if you're holding tension somewhere. So let it be an opportunity to let the diaphragm work, but the rest of the body to be soft and stacked. Inhale deeply. Take the arms up overhead. Hold the breath. Count to 20. Still stay soft. Still stay stacked. And still keep those eyes at the third eye point. Letting the body come into internal clarity, internal view. And release. Beautiful. Bring those hands, the heels of the hands to the hip flexors, gently pressing and rotating inwardly as you start to hinge gently over the hips. So there's the feeling of those tippy birds, those little guys we had in the late 50s, early 60s, or that little ostrich dipped in the pink fluid. You're feeling as your body hinges forward, the tail kind of moves backwards. Another breath here. And then gently release. You're going to bring your right leg into standing. So you're standing on that foot. You're going to look down at the foot and lift all your toes up off the floor. Please keep the big toe off the floor, even if you have to do it mechanically. And then start to try to drop the rest of the toes. Once you do that, if you have to do that with a finger holding that big toe, so be it. But I want you to try to release that finger to keep that big toe lifted, trying to put all the other toes down. You'll notice that you get a lot of activation and awakening in that foot. Super good. We're opening up all those pathways of the foot, the inner and outer ankle, and helping the body to function better with an open foot and reflexology stimulation. Good. Take those toes back down on the ground. Wrap your left elbow around, or it could be that you stack the elbow on top, just depending on your own flexibility. And then actually, let's try the stacking part. And let's push down with that elbow just to get some length through crown. Then if you need to replace it with the wrapping, you can. But I just want you to have that feeling that you're lengthening more than you're twisting. So you feel those sitting bones on the mat and you press down and you lengthen through the crown. And what's interesting about this is that I feel like twists happen naturally when your spine is given the support it needs. So find the rib cage in your mind's eye and imagine that even the ribs squeeze around the spine. And the front and back body actually squeeze around the spine. Beautiful. And gently release that. And release that leg down and go ahead and switch. So we're going to stand on our left leg. We'll lift all the toes up so that if you look between the toes, you can see your mat color. And you'll notice the arch is lifted and you're getting activation up into the inner and outer ankles. You're going to reach down mechanically and hold that big toe up while you release, as to the best of your ability, all other four toes down. And then if you can, you try to make that happen without your hand. And you'll just notice that there's a lot happening there. It not only takes concentration, so keep breathing. Try not to squeeze your jaw or your eyeballs as you work here. One more breath. Waking up all the muscles in that foot. Let's bring our right elbow on top of the left knee if that works. If that's too much, you can use your other hand to kind of scoot that elbow wherever you need to, maybe a little bit towards its own side. But either way, you're going to press down. I like to have my other hand behind me, but there's lots of ways you can do that. You're going to root down and lengthen through the crown. So we're less worried about the twist than we are about the length. And so you're going to let your mind's eye come into the ribs for a moment. So we know with scoliosis in particular that one rib likes to flare and one rib likes to hug too much. So we're going to just see if we can bring in the view of the internal body and if we can make both ribs hug in equally. And even the front and the back of the ribs till you feel that squeezing, that nice infrastructure around the spine. The sitting bones drip down and you lengthen one more time. Beautiful. And gently release. Nice job. You're going to bring that knee behind you, foot behind you, so that you can come onto your hands and knees for cow cat. And hands step onto the floor, as do the knees. And your toes are tucked under for cow and flat for cat. So you'll notice that my hips and my shoulders are right over my knees and my wrists. I'm going to use the feet to press myself into a cow tilt, imagining that I could soften the heart down between the shoulder blades. So I get almost like a sinking sensation of the heart, like it's trying to reach towards the elbows. And then I untuck the feet, push my hands down and forward and curl the spine using the abdominal muscles to help me. And you can even push the hands slightly forward and down. So you actually sit back here a little bit and you get into the lumbar spine. And then we release that as we tuck the toes. We inhale. And I want you to notice something as you let the heart drape down like it's trying to touch the elbows. You'll notice that the upper arm bones start to plug in to the back body. And you'll notice when you push down into cat tilt, untuck your toes, they'll move away from their plug as you arch. Let's do that one more time. Tucking the toes, letting the heart move down through the arms, like the gate of the arms, and you arch, lifting the sitting bones up, lifting the crown up, trying to just mobilize that part of the body. And then as you press down, you curl into cat, moving into the part of the back that's the tightest. And then from here, we swing the hips out to the right and circle them around to the left. And I like to do this really slowly. And my head naturally, if I don't think about it too much, kind of moves in the opposite direction. And I let the breath come in naturally. And you'll notice there's that sinking down of the heart as well as the pushing away. So you get a lot of mobilization in the shoulder joint. And don't worry too much that the elbows are fixed. They can soften a little bit. So you make this kind of more organic. And then go the other way. One more breath. Beautiful. Release. Go ahead and sit back down on your heels. Take your hands, interlace your fingers, and just roll those wrists around a bit. And go the other way. Beautiful. You'll inhale your arms straight out to the side. Exhale, bring your right elbow over the left. Inhale, lift the elbows and take the hands away from you so you feel a stretch. And as you exhale, try to bring elbows into your rib, not your belly button, but just moving the upper body. So we're mobilizing the upper part of the thoracic spine. So we inhale, lift the elbows up and exhale down. And this becomes a little bit of a pranayama too. So inhale and exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. It's like you're pressing that air out. Inhale, exhale. Beautiful. Fly the arms straight up overhead and imagine you're yawning. Even take the arms back behind you. Big stretch. Open. Rest your hands in your lap. Take a cleansing breath. Release that completely. Here we go, second side. So inhale, fly. This time the left arm comes over to double wrap. Inhale, lift the elbows and hands come away from you. Exhale to try to tap the base of your sternum with your elbows. Inhale, lift. Exhale, tap. Squeeze all that air out. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Beautiful. The arms come straight up overhead and we fly around. Now, at any point, if this is too much for sitting, you can change your sitting pattern or bring a block behind because we've got 2 more things to do in this position. Inhale, take the arms out to the side. Bring your first wrap around, so that's right arm over left. Now you're going to take your hands and drop them off to the left and take your head and drop it off to the right. So you get, it's like you're trying to get ear to shoulder. You're getting a little stretch or maybe a big stretch for your neck and shoulder. Last breath. Come gently back to center. Drop your hands to the other side. Take your ear to shoulder. Feel where that stretch is. Breathe into it. And then come on back to center. This time we exhale into belly button. So elbows try to get into the belly button, mobilizing a little farther down in that thoracic spine. Inhale, fly your arms up overhead and big circular exhale. Roll the shoulders, cleansing breath. Here we go, second side. So we inhale the arms to the side, left arm comes to the double wrap. We're gonna take the hands towards the right and the head towards the left. And you can just kind of squeeze there and feel where that stretch is and breathe deeply, making sure you stay vertically stacked and you don't flatten out your lumbar curve. Okay, inhale gently to come up. Exhale to the other side. Vertical stacking, super important here. Inhale, come up gently. This time as you exhale, belly button curl. And then inhale, fly all the way around. So the next one is really a favorite scoliosis one of mine. I know we've done this before. Here's the option. This is the easiest done on a wood floor or a carpet. It's the hardest on a yoga mat. So I'm gonna just scoot mine away for a moment. It's really ideal on a hardwood floor. Again, one of my favorites for stabilizing ribs and bringing in stabilization into sacrum. So this one's really good for that. So you're gonna come on down onto your back with your knees bent and your feet on the floor. And just take a cleansing breath here. And I want you to feel into the four corners of your body, seeing if we can just notice the symmetry or lack thereof. Take another breath here, noticing what shoulder is heavier, what shoulder is lighter, what hip is heavier, what hip is lighter. And then you take your hands and interlace them behind the head. Now the head's never gonna lift up. Neither are the fingers, neither are the elbows. So those are gonna glide on the floor. Inhale. As you exhale, you bring your knees up towards your chest. And exhale here just to arrive and soften. As you inhale, bring the lower back to the floor. I want you to try to flatten it. In fact, if there was something underneath you like a scarf, I want you to press down so much with your abdominals that somebody could not pull that scarf out from underneath you. And then you're gonna inhale. As you exhale, you're gonna just shorten the left side of your body by bringing the elbow towards the hip. And like I said, the head and the hands and the elbows stay on the floor. And as you get there, you inhale that low back again to the floor. And as you exhale, you squeeze those obliques, those side muscles. And you try to isolate it right in between the hip and the shoulder. So you're really working those muscles. And you might notice here that on one side, it's harder for the hip region, and on the other side, it's harder for the rib region. So you want to just note that. And then inhale, come back to center, and exhale, release your feet. But this is really great for me when I start to get a little kitty wampus. And just with the feet on the floor now, once again, feel your symmetry or lack thereof. And usually it will give you information. If you feel more symmetrical now, then that's a good side to repeat. If you feel less symmetrical, then the other side may be better for you. So, but note that in scoliosis, often we've got two different things happening. We've got one side in the lumbar spine that's too wide, one side that's too narrow, and then the opposite in the upper rib, in the ribs. And so you want to be able to isolate this into the proper area for your curves. So we inhale, low back to the floor. We exhale, bring the knees up. And we're gonna inhale again, low back to the floor. This time we'll glide the elbow towards the right hip, hip towards the right elbow. So we're making a C shape with the body. And again, as you inhale, low back to the floor. Hands, elbows as much as you can, and head stay on the floor. Each exhale, you squeeze just a little bit more. And you try to see, where is that squeeze harder for me? In the lower part of that C or in the upper part of the C? And then you try to make that correction. And inhale, come back to center. And exhale, drop your feet to the floor. And just take a moment to feel the four corners of your body. Now, for me, I noticed that made me feel a little more asymmetrical. So I know the left side is better for me to twist to. It might be opposite for you, or I don't know, you'll tell me later. So we're gonna do the side that created more symmetry again. So that it's important to go to both sides, but we want to emphasize the side that brings us into symmetry. So inhale, low back to the floor. Exhale, bring your knees up. Next, inhale, low back to the floor. Exhale, make your C. And then just let that body-mind come into clear focus and just see what you can feel into and notice. Every inhale, the low back drops to the floor. And every exhale, you find that part of the body that needs to learn to squeeze more and breathe. One more breath, low back to the floor. Exhale, squeeze. Inhale, come back to center. Exhale, place the feet down. Take a cleansing breath. And just check in again to your symmetry and see how that's feeling for you. So here's one more way we can do this same pose. I like this one too. It's got a slightly different benefit and some of the same ones as well. So now my legs go out in a V, pretty comfortable V. So obviously with your hip, you want that V to be comfortable. And then you take your hands out in a Y. So now you look like a big X. And you're gonna do the exact same exercise, but here's gonna be a little different, and I'll cue you when it's right. You're gonna imagine that you have a block or your cute little pillow in between your inner thighs, and there's gonna be a place where that's gonna be important to activate. But meanwhile, and I'll cue you when that time comes, you're gonna inhale the low back to the floor. As you exhale, you're gonna take that same movement. So you're gonna glide your legs and arms to the side. So you make a C shape with your waistline. When you get there, heels press into the floor and you try to squeeze the inner thighs. Inhale, low back to the floor. Exhale, try to deepen your C and squeeze that imaginary block. One more breath. Inhale, low back to the floor, squeezing, blocking, and releasing. Come on back to center. You might have to look up to see where center is, and just take a moment to feel and see what that did for you. Breathe that in. Here we go, second side. So you got your big, nice big X. Inhale, low back to the floor. Exhale, sweep your X to the other side, making your waistline nice and squeezy. Low back to the floor, squeeze it again, hug in, and squeeze the imaginary block. So the legs kind of activate. Here we go, low back to the floor, squeeze into your C, and squeeze your inner thighs. And exhale, release, come back to center. Look up if you need to make yourself even, and lie carefully back down and take a cleansing breath. All right, beautiful. Roll to your right side and find your way back up to hands and knees. And when you get there, reapply your mat to the floor. One of my favorite exercises, really works miracles and wonders when I need it. Cool. We're gonna come into downward facing dog. So with toes tucked under, and that's an inversion. Remember how important inversions are for immunity. toes tucked under. We're gonna press our hands down and forward to bring our hips up. And I'm gonna just have you keep your knees bent so you get a nice extension of the spine. Press the hands down and forward so you get a little uplift in the shoulders and bring your core onto your spine, that whole apple core from pubis to ribs to sternum, and then stretch from there. One more breath. And then from here, you start to try to straighten one leg. The other leg can stay bent. And then you straighten the other one. And you just go back and forth like that. And you can get a little bit creative here. Like you can let your hips swing a little bit and see how that works for your ribs and your hips. And you just let all that good lymphatic fluid move from hips down through crown, flushing the body. Okay, now you're going to take your left foot and step it towards the center of your mat. And you'll take your right foot and step on it. So my right foot is stepping like on the top of my arch, and my heel is resting on my shin. Hope all that makes sense to you. That's a lot of instructions for a video, but I want you to let your shin rest into your heel and your heel isometrically push back, and then take your left sitting bone and reach it to the back wall. Oh, such a good stretch. And then release that on down, knees to the floor. That was a long time onto our hands. So take your hands, clasp them, forearms together, and just swing around into those wrists. That is also one of my favorite scoliosis fixers. When my psoas gets too tight, this is a really nice way to lengthen it. So we're gonna try second side. Take your hands first down by your sides and your fingers away from you, and just give a little stretch to the center of your hands. Take a breath. And then here we go, second one. You can do a couple squeezing of fists and releasing before you go. Toes tucked under, press on back, downward facing dog, knees soft initially so you can find that length through the spine, making sure the hands press down and forward to uplift the shoulders. The heart melts a little bit, but the core comes strongly into play. And then you're gonna straighten your right leg, and you're gonna stand on the arch of the foot with your left foot. So the heel is resting, of the left foot is resting into the shin of the right foot. It's a lot of words there. And then let the shin really rest into the heel, but the heel kind of supports back. It's an isometric action. Keep that. So the knee stays unlocked, and that allows you to take the right sitting bone back to the back wall. And you should get a really lovely full right side body stretch. Go ahead and release. Come on down onto your knees and come on up to sitting. So you're actually coming all the way up. And if that is hard on your knees, if they're tender, bring a blanket or something underneath your knees. We're just gonna do a little bit to activate the front side of the body. My toes are tucked under, my hands are on my hips. So I'm taking my thumbs. It's hard if I turn my back to the microphone. I'm not sure now I know you can see my back, but I'm not sure how much you can hear me. But the thumbs, they just gently dig into those muscles that get tight in the back, and they help to remember that you always want a lumbar curve. So you'll notice with the hands, you can kind of just push that lumbar spine up a little bit, and then you match that with core work as you start to sit back a little bit. And you'll get a nice stretch through thighs, which adds up into psoas and then come up. We've got 2 more of those. So we just use the thumbs to find the lumbar curve, match that with core work, and sit on back and press down to come up. Last one. Here we go. Thumbs move those muscles in and up. Core. Beautiful. Good. Slowly, gently bring your hands down to the floor and take a cleansing breath. Oh, beautiful. You're going to move your left knee into the center of your mat and take your right leg into a lunge. Your hands are going to come up onto that front knee. They'll like bracing. They're going to push down onto the knee and isometrically forward. And that'll help pull the abdominal muscles back. Now remember your little block. This is super important for hip health. You squeeze the block. So what I notice in my own body is the left side of my left hip is weak. It likes to stay out to the side. It doesn't like to squeeze, but if it does, I like to wrap my sitting bone under. And this is actually not a good thing for me. So I find those inner thighs and I try to squeeze. At the same time, I try to swing that sitting bone a little out to the side. And that usually brings my hips into better alignment. Then with my bracing and the abdominals strong, I can release the hands, press through the legs, and safely lift my heart. Beautiful. Release on down. Take the hands to the floor. Take a breath there just to stretch the front of that left hip. And then release that and swing it back and go second side. Go slowly enough that it feels good to you. And now the hands brace down on the knee and isometrically push forward. So it's the back leg that we're paying a lot of attention to, where we squeeze those inner thighs as if they were squeezing a block. But just notice if that sitting bone likes to wrap towards the midline. So even though the inner thighs should squeeze, the sitting bone should move out and apart from each other a little bit. So just notice that. I wonder if we could get some strength, infrastructure around the hips with those ideas. And then with that, there's that bracing, the abdominals get strong. We release the hands, we use the legs and push the heart up. Exhale, release. Beautiful. You're just going to rock forward and back here. Uttanasana, standing forward fold. Get a stretch for the back side of the body. Please let the knees be soft and let your body hang on those soft knees. Take your mind's eye and take them to the feet. So here's the same idea that we just did. The inner thighs should squeeze together so you feel a little uplift in the pelvis. The knees should stay soft and the sitting bones should both swing away from each other. Those are the actions that keep our hips really healthy. So I'll go through those again. Inner thighs, and that comes from the action of the feet. So the feet are strong. We draw up the legs to squeeze inner thighs around that imaginary block. The knees stay soft, the heels stay grounded, and we swing the sitting bones apart. Beautiful. From there, press halfway up, Ardha Uttanasana. From there, bend the knees, Utkatasana. Take a breath there. Activate abdominals. We'll take one standing pose. So we press down with those strong legs. Inhale to come up to standing. Grab the right wrist with your left hand and go ahead and pull it over to the side. And remember the C shape we did before on the floor. So draw into your abdominals as if you could bring low back to the floor and squeeze that side waistline. Beautiful. Inhale, come up. Switch hands. Exhale. Start to tilt to the side, remembering the work we did before. So the low back comes to the floor, or the imaginary floor, and the C shape intensifies. And then we press down with both legs to come up to standing. Exhale, release. We have time for one more thing on the floor. We're going to take our blanket and we're going to make a burrito roll. Another favorite psoas stretch. We almost can't get enough psoas stretch when we have some misalignments in the spine. That's usually has such a big part of it. So you're going to sit sort of in front of that blanket, but you're going to roll back and get it underneath your sacrum. And you kind of have to find that space of comfortability. So it's not too close to your tailbone and it's not in your lumbar spine. We'll do that in a moment, but for right now, you're gonna hug your left knee into the chest and you're gonna stretch your right leg out so it's not touching the floor. If you were to peek at it, which is a good thing to do because it works your abdominals a little bit, you're gonna notice that all toes are pointing straight up. And then you use your abdominals and lay yourself back down as if you could lengthen through the spine. As you inhale, hug that left knee into the chest. Exhale, extend the right heel away. Inhale, hug left knee. Exhale, extend heel. Inhale, knee. Exhale, stretch. Beautiful. We're going to jump switch. So we're going to bring one leg up and the other leg out. Hugging in, looking up, making sure that all toes are pointed up, using your abdominals to try to lengthen your spine back down. Hugging knee in, extending heel out. Hugging knee in, extending heel out. Last breath. All right, from here, you just bring both knees in towards the chest. If you need to rearrange how you are on that burrito roll or your little lift there, take your legs up overhead, take your arms out in T, and you're just going to do ankle circles. And go the other way. And when I do ankle circles, I really like to add my toes. Like I like them not to just go along for the ride, to be articulating, almost like I was a foot piano player. Beautiful. And then just start to shake those legs out, like really go for it. Shake them out. Get that lymph system really stimulated. This is also an inversion, so you're double tasking, multitasking. Keep going. We've got another few seconds, so shake it out. Let it have it. And you can groan. Groaning's good for releasing stress and energy. Beautiful. Release that. Put your feet on the floor, and then you're just gonna take your hips and tilt them a little bit. So I'm gonna move towards my blanket a teeny tad, and I'm gonna let the blanket go a little more towards my lumbar spine. I don't want it to sit in the lumbar spine, but I want the hips to start to drape over. So I get that nice little arch in the spine. I'm gonna take my arms up overhead. Now, when we do any back bending work, which this theoretically is, you always want abdominal support. So just be cognizant of that. Bring lower abs, which are bipubic bone, and middle abs, which are ribs, and upper abs, which is sternum. And you just help that beautiful lumbar spine increase, but with support. The legs are awake and active. You've got one more breath here. Beautiful. And then very gently start to move out of that. You're going to come off of your blanket little bits at a time, and then you're going to scoot that blanket right underneath your knees. And this is where you rest. Palms face up to the sky, eyes closed, jaw unhinged. Breath is rejuvenative, but even the breath starts to slow down and lengthen, and you start to settle as if you could just pour your body onto the earth. We'll let everything start to get heavy. Start to notice how your body feels. Where you can still breathe and let go. Noticing your symmetry and letting that be. Let your belly release. And the last thing we're going to do for our immunity today is we are going to smile internally. So you're going to picture to your best of your ability, and you really don't need to know where these things are, but if you do, great, that's helpful. You're going to smile to your tummy, to the place where digestion really happens. And you're going to smile into your intestines. And you're going to imagine there all the beautiful microbiome, just super happy. All the beneficial bacteria having a little dance party in your body. To the best of your ability, you're going to imagine your adrenal glands. Those are the ones that sit on the back of the body, little teeny guys at the waist, just above the waist, just at the waistline, really, above the hips, on either side of the spine. And you're going to send lots of love there. And then you're going to picture this kidney bean shaped kidney in the body. And I can't remember where it is, sorry. But you're going to smile as if you know just where it is. The kidney will respond. And the liver, which may be on the left side of the body, but again, I'm not quite remembering. Doesn't matter, just send your liver lots of smiley love. You're going to bring that energy up to diaphragm. And then that smiley, lovely feeling up into your heart. You smile for your heart. That's such a hardworking organ, muscle. Give it lots of love. And then imagine that you did that so much that all those organs and places in your body start to overflow, and that drips into the rest of the body, mind, and spirit. And you are welcome to stay here as long as you want, absorbing that. If you had any particular questions you wanted to ask, you could always wave your hand right now and I'll know to wait. Otherwise, I will leave you and you can always email me. So enjoy this beautiful Tuesday and your beautiful garden and your beautiful self. Namaste.